Have y'all bouncing like a robo while exposing ill Freemasons. Have y'all bouncing like a robo while exposing ill Freemasons.
Gemini, Judas the twin,
Have y'all bouncing like a robo while exposing ill Freemasons.
has come to testify that we're all students within.
While exposing ill Freemasons.
I study scrolls from the library, and Nag Hammadi, discovered in 1945 by Muhammad Ali. Also books that were unearthed within the Qumran community, as many fight to shield the truth and try to keep it from you and me. Ancient secrets that were first toppled on an Egyptian plateau that would one day find themselves underneath Rennes chateau. Knowledge once buried info carried from Solomon's temple. Stories vary, some of them scary, but all of them simple. Look into my eyes, there's no surprise that I've got a slight temper towards the lies in disguise of the modern day Knights Templar. Realize from the size of the recognized architecture that the wise have enterprise that can hypnotize and spark a lecture. I don't need to preach, but to teach that each founding father dreamed in prophecy and demonocracy should have been drowned in water. From King George VI passing his town and crown to his daughter, as many climate degrees drop her to the knees, bowing down to her garter. How many times, how many rhymes, how many crimes need to be committed till you'll admit that they were behind it? Don't be blinded or narrow-minded. Become one of the Pharaoh kind kids, posing Freemasons from America's commander-in-chief, the Nova Scotia's Alexander Keith, like Captain Morgan, that panhandler and thief. So what's more important than a Mayan calendar belief? Exposing Freemasons from America's commander-in-chief, the Nova Scotia's Alexander Keith, like Captain Morgan, that panhandler and thief. So what's more important than a Mayan calendar belief? You better make sure that the laces of your Pumas are tight, cause if the rumors are right, the Loomis and Knight have got the baby boomer consumers in fright with their continuous bright, luminous light. You better make sure that the laces of your Pumas are tight, cause if the rumors are right, the Loomis and Knight have got the baby boomer consumers in fright with their continuous bright, luminous light. I get an actual pleasure exposing Disney's national treasure. Somebody pinch me. Everybody's trying to decipher the code of Da Vinci. Sacred geometry, math that you measure. Hard technology is some laugh at the weather. From their chapters and their lodges that act as if they know who God is. They're the hidden hand, taking forbidden land, never giving a damn if you sit or stand, they spit on man. How many times, how many rhymes, how many crimes need to be committed till you'll admit that they were behind it? Don't be blinded or narrow-minded. Become one of the Pharaoh kind kids, posing Freemasons from America's commander-in-chief, the Nova Scotia's Alexander Keith, like Captain Morgan, that panhandler and thief. So what's more important than a Mayan calendar belief? Exposing Freemasons from America's commander-in-chief, the Nova Scotia's Alexander Keith, like Captain Morgan, that panhandler and thief. So what's more important than a Mayan calendar belief? They brought Cleopatra's needles to the real axis of evil. Rebuilt St. Paul's Cathedral to become Jerusalem's equal. In times of medieval, great minds that are deceitful, grapevines that are more lethal than hate crimes upon the people. Like the often forgotten cards of Akhenaten's guard. There's no stopping these topics that are dropping like shotgun shards, directed towards the so-called prophets of Scotland Yard, who taught me the arts by unlocking charts and filling their shopping carts. Come on, we've all seen the surface disguised as greedy merchants, erecting the obelisk penis perfect so they can feed us worship, never really releasing their grip, as Miss Liberty's allowed to introduce her whip and reinterpret his story into pure shit. There is a list of men from Francis Bacon to Christopher Wren, and since I can no longer put my fist into them, I choose to get pissed with a pen. Now tell me, have y'all been listening? How many times, how many rhymes, how many crimes need to be committed till you'll admit that they were behind it? Don't be blinded or narrow-minded. Become one of the Pharaoh kind kids, posing Freemasons from America's commander-in-chief, the Nova Scotia's Alexander Keith, like Captain Morgan, that panhandler and thief. So what's more important than a Mayan calendar belief? Exposing Freemasons from America's commander-in-chief, the Nova Scotia's Alexander Keith, like Captain Morgan, that panhandler and thief. So what's more important than a Mayan calendar belief?
Y'all bouncing like a robo while exposing ill Freemasons.
Exposing Freemasons from America's commander-in-chief, the Nova Scotia's Alexander Keith, like Captain Morgan, that panhandler and thief. So what's more important than a Mayan calendar belief?
say police brutality is an oxymoron. There are no brutal police. The minute you become brutal, you're no longer the police. So what we're dealing with out here, we're not dealing with police. We're dealing with a federally authorized gang.
That's the sound of the police. That's the sound of the beast. That's the sound of the police. That's the sound of the beast.
All of these candidates are a joke. All of them are scripted, and there's a hidden hand behind them, and we all know that. All of them are basically managers of a situation. Nobody's really owning their situation. If you don't really understand the economy of the country, you don't know the laws, you're not an educated voter. And this is what a lot of these candidates are actually banking on. They're banking on the ignorance of American citizenry, which is what I see in these Democratic as well as Republican debates. There's no realness to this. Nobody's studying anybody. Somebody says, kill the Mexicans, yeah! You know what, I think women should get paid more, yeah! Take away everybody's guns, yeah! Nobody's thinking. So if we're not gonna have a real discussion about the real state of America, leave me the f*** alone.
Next on the list of gestures, signs, and symbols used in the occult by those who consider themselves the elite, the so-called global Illuminati, is the Freemasonic Master of the Second Veil pose, sometimes called the Hidden Hand. We know this is a Freemason symbol thanks to Duncan's Masonic Ritual and Monitor, written in the 19th century with illustrations of the poses. Everyone from world leaders to writers and actors and musicians can be found striking this particular pose, which tells others on that Masonic checkerboard floor, which is on their temple floors, that they are in the club of enlightened ones ruling over our world. It's staggering how frequently I find those in the entertainment industry striking this particular pose. The interesting thing is that we can draw a clear connection from Freemasonry to the occult because they each throw up in other contexts the other signs and symbols like the 666 hand gesture, which likely has a dual yoga mudra meaning, the sign of the horns, and the one-eye symbolism. For those doing this research, it can feel daunting figuring out just what it is they are doing in their photo shoots, but it's actually a relatively small number of signs and symbols they throw up over and over again. Once you know what they are, you will see them in magazines, on movie covers, in news broadcasts, and the like. Your world is largely a lie, and events are manipulated to advance a globalist agenda which, you may have surmised by now, will make way for Satan's rule here on Earth. That's good news for all of those who believe upon the cross and what Christ has done for us, but very bad news for everyone who, due to their own hardness of heart, cannot see the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ. This is the hidden hand that has largely shaped world history, and the very perception of what that history even is. The time approaches and draws nigh. You need to make a choice. For more examples of the hidden hand that has shaped history, please see my Pinterest board linked to in the description of this video. Also, there is a link to my backup channel, which I encourage all to subscribe to and click the bell for notifications. Thank you for watching, and God bless each and every one of you in Jesus' mighty name. Until next time.
Look at what they're all doing with their right hand. Now, why are they all hiding their hand like that? What does this hidden hand gesture mean? Does it mean anything at all? Perhaps it's just coincidence. Well, let's take a look at some more portraits of famous personalities from history. It happens far too often to be coincidence. This hiding of the hand gesture is actually from the 13th degree of Freemasonry, which is also known as the Royal Arch degree. It is symbolized with the triple Tau. Now, this gesture is the sign of the Master of the Second Veil. I won't go into the details of it, but basically what this gesture is doing is signaling to other initiates that they're part of the secret brotherhood and that their actions are inspired by Masonic beliefs. What they are saying is, it doesn't matter what I appear to be on the surface. This secret gesture tells you that we are working towards the same utopian end, you and I. We are both enlightened with the illuminating knowledge of Masonry. Remember in the Jesuits' oath they talked about being on opposing sides in public, but secretly were working towards the same end. That's why we have both communists and capitalists making the same gesture here. Think also of the Hegelian principle, where two seemingly opposing ideologies are rubbed up against one another to create a synthesis. What these famous leaders are saying to the initiated is that there is a hidden force or hidden hand guiding the course of history, and that they are a part of it. It's that hidden hand that we've been following throughout the whole of this series, so it should come as no surprise to us by now that Satan is still at work in the world. These illuminated ones think Lucifer is good and following him will help mankind, but as Christians we know differently. We know that Satan disguises himself as an angel of light and always has. We'll look more at gestures later. With this in mind, we should be careful not to pledge too much allegiance or get too fervent about either side in politics. There was a situation in the 2004 presidential elections where Americans had to choose between John Kerry and George Bush. What most didn't know is that although one was Republican and one was a Democrat on the surface, both were members of the Skull and Bones Masonic Society at Yale University. Both being Freemasons, did the American public really have a choice at the polling office, or were they voting for the same ideals dressed in different colours? There's a reason why, no matter who we elect, things always deteriorate in politics. Remember, the Jezebel spirit looks to control men of influence for her own ends, so she will always go for the leaders of nations. That's why we should pray for them. But we should also remember the central verse in the whole Bible, which is Psalm 118:8, and which says, "It is better to put your trust in God than in man."
Now, what I've been trying to tell people on this channel is that it's so important to look for symbols, because these people speak in symbols. There's things that you would never think of looking at in a painting before, because they have trained our brain to work a certain way while theirs works a different way. They're brought up, their children aren't brought up in the public school systems or in any of these school systems that we go through. They're brought up in a different school system. They train and teach their own, the secrets of the occult, the secrets of Freemasonry, and all of these things. They're ushered in that way, while we're thrown into, a school system where we learn fake history and all of these fake things that dumb us down and make us stupid. So we don't look for these things. But if you look, it becomes more and more obvious, as I'll show you with the hidden hand. As you see all of these prominent people in history that flash this symbol, which is the Royal Arch degree of Freemasonry. It's a sign of power for the elitists, for the Freemasons. I'll start with using a quote by Manly P. Hall in his book Secret Destiny of America. "Today's thinking toward a democratic world state is neither a new trend nor an accidental circumstance. The work of setting up the background of knowledge necessary to the establishing of enlightened democracy among all nations has been carried on for many hundreds of years by secret societies." Because all of this knowledge and all this hidden stuff is passed on through the Masonic lodges, like I've been telling you, which is the recruiting ground for the Illuminati, for the occult. This is where they are taught that they're their own gods. They get all this power, and we're all peasants to them. And they dumb us down and put us through the systems, and then they raise the children, and they raise society on the television set, and false idol worship, and all of this stuff. And that's how we get where we are today. But it is essential in your awakening process to start training your brain when you're watching television, when you're doing anything, watching videos on YouTube, when you're seeing somebody talk, if anything, looking at pictures in museums, to look for the hand symbols. And it's not just the basic hand symbols that we talked about, which is the 666, the overly obvious ones that they flash. Okay, because the Freemasons speak in secret code. They have secret handshakes. Yes, it's true. They have secret handshakes. They have secret codes they flash to one another on the television set all the time. And one of which is this one, the hidden hand. So like I mentioned, this is from the Royal Arch degree of Freemasonry. When they get to this degree, they are told the name of God. And his name is Jahbulon, Jahbulon, which is a combination of words. The first word being Jehovah, okay, of the varieties of the sacred name, and using the different nations of the earth. Three particularly merit the attention of the Royal Arch Freemasons. Jah, the name of God, is found in the 68th Psalm. Okay, the second part of the word, the B-U-L, also refers to Baal. This word signifies Lord, Master, or Possessor, and hence it was applied by many nations of the East to denote the Lord of all things and the Master of the world, referring to Baal, Lucifer. Okay, and then the third part is the O-N at the end, on. This was the name which Jehovah was worshipped among the Egyptians. So this is what they find out as they go through Freemasonry. They find out the true name of God, that we've all been misled, and then they find out that the real mysteries of life is that we are, as human beings, are God, that we have all the powers of the universe. They use this through witchcraft, through sorcery, through all the things that these people end up doing. But as they go through Freemason, this is what's exposed to them. That's why there's levels in Freemasonry. That's why people don't understand. They'll say, I know a guy who was a Freemason. Right, well, he was probably a first, second, or third degree Freemason. He just joined it because he was looking to get involved in something. He has no idea what he's doing. The next thing you know, one of the first ceremonies they do, he's in his underwear on the floor with a knife to his neck, wearing a blindfold, told that if he ever reveals the secrets of Freemasonry, he'll be killed. And then this guy doesn't have a clue what's going on, and he kind of just might stick around. He might look to go further. But the people who go further up the ladder, who continue to graduate from degree to degree, these are the ones who become rulers, right? These are the people that get put in positions of power. Now, the prominent positions of power in our world are all obviously Freemasons who have gotten to a high degree of masonry, but also people who are part of a bloodline. So some of these people who might just join a lodge and think that if they get to the 30th degree that they're going to be the next president of the United States. It's pretty rare if you're not a part of the bloodline, but you will be put in a prominent position if you want to run for local office or even minor or senator or something like that, or be an executive of industry. This is what happens when you go through the lodge. But you also find out, like I said, that you are indeed a God on earth, and you also are revealed God's name according to what they believe. Now, what's interesting is that the whole idea behind the hidden hand is apparently from Exodus 4:6, where the Lord furthermore said to him, now put your hand into your bosom. So he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was like snow. Then he said, put your hand into your bosom again. So he put his hand into his bosom again, and he took it out. He said, behold, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. This is when God is speaking to Moses in Exodus 4:6. They interpret it as what we are is what we ultimately do. This isn't paying homage to the Lord. It's almost in a sense a mockery to God. But you can see all of these famous people, all these people through history, what they started to do was they would depict it in paintings. Now, this is one of the things I always tell people who are just fresh to waking up. When you show them paintings, this isn't just a portrait. We've talked about portraits, pictures, right, on magazine covers where the guy's doing 666, and we said, wow, okay, how many times can they do this without making it obvious? Now think about paintings throughout history, the history of the world. How long these people took to do this painting, to stand there and paint this person. And you'll see that throughout history, that these painters all portrayed these people with their hand underneath their jacket, over their heart, the hidden hand. It wasn't a coincidence. They just say, okay, put your hand here. I think this would be a great pose, over and over. I mean, look at the people of history. Napoleon, Freemason. George Washington, Freemason. Stalin, Freemason. Karl Marx, Freemason. Mozart. You get Solomon Rothschild, and we know what the Rothschilds are all about. You get our own president, Barack Obama. You get James Garfield. You get John Wilkes Booth. You even get our good old friend, the satanic Pope Francis. You get Kanye West doing it. Celebrities doing it too all the time now in pictures. Johnny Depp, Paul McCartney. I mean, the list goes on of people in history that have been doing this. Now, the symbol was put into painting so that they would know throughout history, before there was a camera and you could take photos, so people could look back and say, wow, it's 1900 and I'm a Freemason 33rd degree. And now I'm looking back and I'm seeing, wow, George Washington, there it is. There's his hand over his chest. So I know. That's how they talk to each other and communicate, so they can let other people in the brotherhood know who they are and who they represent. Now, we have been trained as sheep to never look for these types of things, ever. Their brains process this way. They look for symbols. They communicate through symbols. Us, we're in an alpha state, like I've been saying over and over. We're not looking for symbols. Our brain isn't even functioning on a level where it's processing thought. And that's why most people who come to this channel who are awake, who are saying, I'm trying to wake somebody up, I'm trying to help them see what's going on. It's because the person is constantly in an alpha state. They cannot see the signs or the symbols because they're sleeping. Literally, they're walking around sleeping like zombies, which they're telling you with all these zombie shows and stuff like that. We are a race of zombies at this point. But anyone who thinks at this point that symbols like this are just another coincidence, it's frustrating. I know how frustrating it can be for a lot of you out there to wake people up. Trust me, it's just as equally as frustrating for me. You know, I'm putting myself out there on this channel. I get so many trolls, so many people that are just sound asleep that I have to deal with and shun away, or tell to just, you know, go back to sleep where they belong, because they won't wake up, because they won't see these signs. And the reason they won't see it is because they're sleeping, because they're in an alpha state. But these people are taught to communicate through symbols, and they have forever. Freemasons use secret hand symbols. They use secret handshakes, all sorts of symbology. Certain words have different dual meanings to them. And this is yet another one, a very important one to know. So now you've learned a lot of these symbols we've talked about, which are pretty obvious ones, the 666, the peace sign. Maybe to new people to the channel or new people who are waking up, it's not obvious. But there's a lot of people who are awake that don't know these Masonic hand signs. And you need to look for them. Particularly ones like this, because they're still doing it. I mean, you could even see Tom Hanks doing it. You know, you could see Ted Cruz was doing it. And you might say, oh, he was just putting his hand on the heart for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, these people do the hidden hand. It's deliberate. They put it under the coat. These people aren't posing on these, you know, getting painted like this, doing it deliberately. And I know a lot of people out there, they say, you know, exposing this stuff, can't you get in a lot of trouble? I'm kind of afraid to tell people about it. I don't know what's going to happen. Listen, okay, the Freemasons never expected this stuff to get out. The Illuminati never expected this stuff to get out. They had a whole different idea when they created the internet. Okay, it was coming in for a lot of different reasons, to usher in a lot of things, including the mark of the beast, including complete monitoring of your life and what you're looking up and what you're doing, so they can know if anyone was onto them or whatnot. Okay, but we've gotten to a point now where they don't care anymore. I'm telling you that they don't care. They're not going to go out assassinating people who are truthers at this point, because they look at it and they go, we have billions of people. You know, there's over 7 billion people in the world. Do you know how many billion people are sound asleep? Billions of people. Because the people who are awake is a small majority. They could care less about it because this thing is in overdrive. You know, they are on the path right now. We are on course to ushering in the Antichrist possibly this year. Okay, World War III possibly upon us. They are in overdrive to get this done. They're no longer worrying about getting exposed because they've seen truthers out there talk about it since the early 90s. You know, since William Cooper started talking about it. Since before that, right? Since Pawns in the Game came out, you know, many centuries ago. Books and books and books have come out exposing them and exposing this. And they've seen the reaction of the sheep because they've created this system, this school system, this belief in a fake history, this discrediting that they do on the television set under hypnosis to say, oh, these people are crazy conspiracy theories. They created all of this because they studied the brain, they realized how it worked, and they know how to combat it. So they look at it now and they say, it doesn't matter. These people can make perfect sense. They can know all of our secrets. No one's going to listen to them because we have them under full control. They're sound asleep. They're under hypnosis. All we have to do is put Kanye West on TV or Beyonce and have them go, what an Illuminati mess, to get people to go, yeah, she's even saying that you people are stupid. Then you have idiots who come over to truther channels and go, Beyonce's calling you guys an Illuminati mess. Don't you get it? Like, what? Are you that stupid? Are you that stupid? She's even discrediting it to get you off the scent because they don't want you near it. They have to discredit it. That's how they continually win, by discrediting it. They have these false idols discredit all of this stuff because the sheep are so obsessed with these false idols. They're so obsessed with them. They think that they're friends with them. They think that they know them personally because they think they can relate to their music, but they can, and it's part of the hypnosis. So when people ask me, that's the answer. Why aren't people seeing this? Why aren't they coming after you? Why aren't they coming after? Because they don't care. They don't care anymore because it's over for the most part. You know, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get souls back to heaven, as many as possible back to our Father, as many as I can. Because if you start waking up and you start realizing, you know, that you've strayed away from God because you've been misled by the world around you, well, now's your time to repent and get right with God. And he'll understand because he knows we're under demonic hypnosis here. But as far as they go, they have billions of people behind it. They can They don't care. They have everything that they want at this point, and they want it to come in now. They want to usher it in now. They're not going to spend their time wasting it on people like me who might get a few hundred people maybe to wake up, and see what's going on. But they know that none of us can do anything about it. They have the military, they have the weapons, and besides, people like us who are awake, who believe in Jesus Christ, we're not preaching violence. We're not preaching, let's go do something violently. We're preaching to fight back with the scriptures, and to them that's a joke, because all they care about is their life here on earth. They want to have immortality here. So they're not worried. As long as you're not a threat to do something to them like that, then they don't care, because they control and own everything, and they want to usher it in now, and that's what they're doing.
Hey everybody, this is Mike with On Point Preparedness. I was going through my news feed today and I found this image rather interesting. This is from the Republican presidential primaries, and you have your front runners, keyword front runners, Ted Cruz and Donald Trump here. And Mr. Cruz is assuming a rather unnatural pose while he does the Pledge of Allegiance. His right hand is tucked inside of his jacket, and this is rather anecdotal. And maybe his hands is just cold, or maybe that's just his style. But let's just look at a couple more photos here. So this is a panned out view. Rather naturally, every other presidential candidate has their hand outside their jacket doing the Pledge of Allegiance, except for Mr. Cruz. How about another photo? This is from the last presidential primary. Cruz is not represented in here, but you can see everyone has their hand outside of their jacket. Another point in time from that last election. Hands outside the jacket, but then let's go back to Cruz, inside the jacket. Another point in time, inside the jacket, and another point in time, inside the jacket. So what does this mean? Well, maybe nothing, but maybe something as well. Take a look at this article from the VigilantCitizen.com, the hidden hand that shaped history. So we all know the occult entertainment industry has lots of Illuminati gang symbols, where they do the devil horns or the 666 winking and all sorts of other various hand gestures. But this one is actually a little bit more subtle, and you can see here Stalin in Washington with the hand inside of the coat. This article is very thorough and very well researched, that self-proclaimed Masons throughout history, as well as individuals who have had a heavy hand in shaping world history, all have portraits of them with the hidden hand. The research that Vigilant Citizen provides us with is that, at least to our knowledge, this hand gesture may have originated in the 13th degree of the Scottish Rite, the Royal Ark degree. And it is a hand gesture that is used in a particular ceremony. So you can see here from the book, Duncan's Masonic Ritual and Monitor, this is a hand gesture that was required to go through a second veil of this ceremony. Specifically, the explanation of it is biblical. It comes from Exodus 4:6, and in this verse it says, the heart, bosom, stands for what we are, and the hand for what we do. So it stands for what we are is what we ultimately do, and this symbol is used throughout many famous Masons, and it lets other people know that they're a part of the occult, they're a part of this elite society, and it just says that their actions are hidden behind the cloth, quite literally. So if we look at people throughout history, and again, portraits, and whenever you do a portrait, you want to make sure that your pose is rather appropriate. Hand inside of the jacket for Napoleon. Karl Marx, hand inside the coat. George Washington, hand inside the coat. Many people actually think that our founding fathers were all Christian, and that's not true. Washington and many others are self-proclaimed Masons. Going down, Mozart, Lafayette, and the Rothschilds, the bankers, of course. Absolutely. This article goes on and on and on, so you can see Stalin and the likes of many other people have the hidden hand. I'm going to put this link in the YouTube description so you guys can educate yourselves further, and I'm going to put this link to Angel White's video where he has additional photos of the hidden hand. So here's another one, the Skull and Bones Secret Society of Yale University. And you can see, again, the hidden hand inside the coat. So, is Mr. Cruz part of this secret society? Possibly. But in all honesty, guys, I just want to let you know that I am not voting in this presidential primary or the elections because, number one, I think they're rigged. But even if they were not rigged, none of these jokers are talking about what is destroying this country and destroying the world. It is the banking system and how money is created. All money is created out of debt, and therefore it will enslave everyone. So all these people that talk about balancing the budget, it's a physical impossibility. You can't do it. Not when you create all money out of debt. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you go ahead and you educate yourself, your friends, your family, and you watch Mike Maloney's Hidden Secrets of Money. It is the best 7 or 8 part series video on how money is created and how it is enslaving everyone. And then you'll realize that this is just a dog and pony show. So again, rather interesting, Mr. Cruz. But honestly, I don't trust any of these guys, especially the Bush dynasty. He just uses his hand signals elsewhere. Anyways, keep your eyes vigilant. This is Mike with On Point Preparedness. See you guys later.
The UN Conference on Climate Change, which will take place next year in Paris, is an absolute top priority. The goal is to achieve a post-2020 agreement that should include all countries and be legally binding. That should include all countries and be legally binding. And be legally binding. And be legally binding. And be legally binding. This is ambitious, but there are some glimmers of hope.
At this time of year, few sights evoke more feelings of cheer and goodwill than the twinkling lights of a Christmas tree. The popularity of a tree at Christmas is due in part to my great-great-grandparents, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. After this touching picture was published, many families wanted a Christmas tree of their own, and the custom soon spread. In 1949, I spent Christmas in Malta as a newly married naval wife. We have returned to that island over the years, including last month for a meeting of Commonwealth leaders. And this year, I met another group of leaders, the Queen's Young Leaders, an inspirational group, each of them a symbol of hope in their own Commonwealth communities. Gathering round the tree gives us a chance to think about the year ahead. I'm looking forward to a busy 2016, though I have been warned I may have happy birthdays sung to me more than once or twice. It also allows us to reflect on the year that has passed, as we think of those who are far away or no longer with us. Many people say the first Christmas after losing a loved one is particularly hard. But it's also a time to remember all that we have to be thankful for. It is true that the world has had to confront moments of darkness this year, but the Gospel of John contains a verse of great hope, often read at Christmas carol services. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. One cause for thankfulness this summer was marking 70 years since the end of the Second World War. On VJ Day, we honored the remaining veterans of that terrible conflict in the Far East, as well as remembering the thousands who never returned. The procession from Horse Guards Parade to Westminster Abbey must have been one of the slowest ever, because so many people wanted to say thank you to them. At the end of that war, the people of Oslo began sending an annual gift of a Christmas tree for Trafalgar Square. It has 500 light bulbs and is enjoyed not just by Christians, but by people of all faiths and of none. At the very top sits a bright star to represent the Star of Bethlehem. The custom of topping a tree also goes back to Prince Albert's time. For his family's tree, he chose an angel, helping to remind us that the focus of the Christmas story is on one particular family. For Joseph and Mary, the circumstances of Jesus' birth in a stable were far from ideal. But worse was to come as the family was forced to flee the country. It is no surprise that such a human story still captures our imagination and continues to inspire all of us who are Christians the world over. Despite being displaced and persecuted throughout his short life, Christ's unchanging message was not one of revenge or violence, but simply that we should love one another. Although it is not an easy message to follow, we shouldn't be discouraged. Rather, it inspires us to try harder, to be thankful for the people who bring love and happiness into our own lives, and to look for ways of spreading that love to others, whenever and wherever we can. One of the joys of living a long life is watching one's children, then grandchildren, then great-grandchildren help decorate the Christmas tree. And this year, my family has a new member to join in the fun. The customary decorations have changed little in the years since that picture of Victoria and Albert's tree first appeared, although, of course, electric lights have replaced the candles. There's an old saying that it is better to light a candle than curse the darkness. There are millions of people lighting candles of hope in our world today. Christmas is a good time to be thankful for them and for all that brings light to our lives. I wish you a very happy Christmas.
What is the hidden hand of the men of Jabulon in Freemasonry? How to correctly perform this mysterious sign? And what exactly the triple Tau symbol represents? The average Mason or member of other secret orders knows little of the signs and symbols of his own order, let alone that of others. It is very important to understand that almost all the symbols and signs of the elite are very ancient in origin, having deep mystery religion connection. And they served their idols, which were a snare unto them. Yea, they sacrificed their sons and their daughters unto devils, and shed innocent blood, even the blood of their sons and of their daughters, whom they sacrificed unto the idols of Canaan. And the land was polluted with blood. The Blue Lodge Masons, encompassing the first 3 degrees of Masonry, are instructed that they are seeking the lost word or the lost name of God. It isn't until they reach the level of Royal Arch Masonry, 7th degree York Rite, that they discover that the lost name of God wasn't lost after all. It's at this level that they learn the sacred name of Masonry's God. The greatest, but the most terrible moment in the life of a Mason. The 3 supreme officials of the lodge, with 3 separate keys, unlock the wooden box with the secret of secrets, and give him to read a slip of paper, upon which is written the name of the god whose follower he was Jabulon. The name Jabulon has 3 syllables, representing a composite god made up of 3 subordinate deities. The Masonic material identifies the 3 as Yah, or Yahweh, Baal, and Osiris. Logically, the name should be spelled Jabulon, but Duncan's Masonic Ritual and Monitor admits that over the years the spelling has been corrupted by Freemasonry until it reached its current form. They find that the sacred name of the Masonic God is composed of 3 names representing the 3 identities of God. It is so sacred, it takes 3 Royal Arch Masons to be able to speak it. The 3 Masons grip hands high and low and chant, Jabulon, 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 Jehovah. Interestingly, in the ritual drama, the 3 Masons doing the pronouncing of Jabulon are said to have come from Babylon. So, we have a ritual in which 3 masters come from Babylon to instruct the candidate on how to build the Royal Arch. Moreover, the 3 messengers from Babylon inform the candidate that the true name of God, the name that had been lost for so long, is not Jesus, but is Jabulon. They conveniently omit mention of the fact that this is, in fact, the name of a monstrous devil god. Many other facets and activities pertaining to this degree's ritual stamp it as pure Luciferian and its holder as a Lucifer worshipper. During the initiation into the 7th degree Royal Archmason, York Rite, or 13th degree, Scottish Rite, the candidate drinks wine from a human skull. By this monstrous act, he reinforces the fact that he has taken an oath, swearing to have his skull struck off and his brains exposed to the scorching rays of a Median sun, should he ever divulge Masonic secrets. He goes on to demand that if he does divulge secrets, may all the sins of the dead person whose skull he is drinking from be heaped upon his candidate's head. In accepting the devil god Jabulon as the sacred name of God, the man rising to this level in Masonry or a similar sect becomes demon-possessed, full of the devil, prepared to do the most wicked and foul deeds possible for his hidden deity Baphomet, aka Lucifer, aka Satan, aka Jabulon. Now, the fatal ending and spiritual death sign that is taught for this degree is the one you will find men giving in the photographs in this video. Notably, only higher level initiates and adepts will typically be seen giving this evil sign, stamping them as disciples of Satan. The triple tau is the most significant symbol, or logo, of the Royal Archmason. It represents the Mason who has reached either the 7th degree of the York Rite or 13th degree of the Scottish Rite, as embodying within the attributes of the Godhead, or Holy Trinity, by blasphemously declaring himself to be the great I am that I am, thus identifying himself with Satan's promise in the garden, ye shall be as gods. Yet another proof of the deviltry of the Jabulon hoax is the symbol of the triple tau, which is the most important symbol of the Royal Arch degree. Made up of 3 interlinking tau symbols, T, these 3 are said to represent a triad of sacred Jewish powers of king, priest, and prophet. This picture, which is shown here, is taken directly from Duncan's Masonic Ritual and Monitor, 3rd edition. It pictures the Royal Archmason performing the magical sign of the Master of the Second Veil, thrusting the hand into the bosom and again drawing it out. Equally blasphemous is that in the lecture on the 7th, or Royal Arch degree, of the York Rite, the Mason initiated is asked the question, "Are you a Royal Archmason?" His answer is required to be, "I am that I am." In other words, in this degree's ritual, the Mason has not only acknowledged that the devil, in the disguise of Jabulon, is his sacred lord, but he now is declaring that he, himself, a mere man, is the great I am. In other words, he is saying, "I am God." Obviously, the Illuminati's Masonic elite do not want the general public to know these terrible things. After all, incredibly, Freemasonry's public image is that it is some kind of Christian group. So, the pretense must be maintained and the secrets buttoned up from the profane and vulgar masses. The name and identity of the hidden god must be concealed at all costs, and thus an appropriate hand sign has been devised to represent this grotesque cover-up. The sign of the hidden hand. The pictures and illustrations in this section give evidence of the importance the Illuminati minions give to the use of hands, either in handshakes and grips, or in various poses. This is zoomed-in, higher-quality picture of Abraham Lincoln visiting Union military camp. In this photo Lincoln is not giving the sign. However, in some of his paintings Lincoln is doing the exact opposite. Regrettably, America's first president, George Washington, exhibited this sign. More about his connections to Illuminati and its origins in this video. Soviet Union propaganda poster with communist dictator Joseph Stalin. The poster says, "Glory to the great Stalin." Lenin and Stalin at Gorky, just outside Moscow, September 1922. Stalin had images of his visit to show Lenin's supposed recovery. This pose was not among those published. After being shot in 1940s, the young man on the right has been edited out by Stalin's people. Stalin's reign of terror in the Soviet Union led to the deaths of millions of his own countrymen. Vladimir Lenin, Jewish Mason who led the communist overthrow of the Tsar in Russia, gives the hidden sign of the men who worship the god, Jabulon. Lenin and his cohorts established the Red Terror, the brutal massacre of tens of millions. Lenin standing with another Russian revolutionist, Leon Trotsky. Leon Trotsky was a Russian revolutionary, Marxist theorist, and Soviet politician. After the Bolsheviks took control of the Soviet government, Lenin ordered the formation of the Red Army and appointed Leon Trotsky its leader. Karl Marx, the Jewish radical who inspired Lenin and Trotsky with his communist theories, was secretly a high priest of Satan. See Richard Wurmbrand's book, Marx and Satan. Shown here in his official portrait, Marx is giving an enigmatic Masonic hand sign. In this photo seen giving the same sign again. We see where communists got their inspiration from. 3 red communist heroes who conspired to establish a Bolshevik dictatorship in Russia. Sergei Kirov, Mikhail Lewandowski, and Konstantin Mikonishin. These men saw to the purge, torture, and death of untold thousands before they, in turn, were wiped out by Stalin. Lewandowski, center, is displaying his Masonic hidden hand signal. McConaughey, right, wears the Illuminati Virgin cap. 4 Gulag camp commandants. Note that all 4 are giving the secret sign of Freemasonry, just as did communism's founding father, the Jewish Mason, Karl Marx. Lloyd Shearer, right, with actor James Dean in the early 1950s, wrote the famous column, Walter Scott's Personality Parade in Parade magazine. USA President Teddy Roosevelt, seen reviewing the troops on board a Navy ship, is giving the secret sign of the followers of the god, Jabulon. The fabulously wealthy Salomon Rothschild, founder and overseer of the Vienna, Austria branch of the Rothschild clan. Left-handed path represents dark occultism of magic. Now we find yet another indication of Napoleon's secret society involvement. Wearing red, the color of Rothschild and blood, Napoleon signifies his left-hand path orientation. The symbology of the 3-towered church in the background of the painting, behind the curtain, signifies the boast that Napoleon, a political sovereign, is also lord over the spiritual realm. Napoleon was also reputed to be an illuminatus and an initiate into the greater mysteries, Areopagite degree. In this famous painting of Napoleon, the emperor is depicted using his right hand and giving the Royal Archmason hand sign. Secretary of State Colin Powell holds hands with PLO leader Yasser Arafat as he covertly places his right hand in his coat, a sign to other initiates. Powell is a 33rd degree Mason and a Council on Foreign Relations alumnus. The late Arafat was also a member of the Masonic Lodge. General Paul von Hindenburg, the notable World War I German war hero of the Russian front, who won numerous victories. Later, in the Nazi era, a blimp, named after the general, the Hindenburg, was destroyed by flames while attempting to land in New Jersey after a celebrated transatlantic flight. Many lives were lost. Father of evolution and founder of modern-day science, as well as known Freemason Charles Robert Darwin, giving the hidden hand gesture to the satanic elite. After all, they were the ones funding Darwin and pushing the evolution agenda in today's society. War is hell, said Civil War Union Army Leader General William Tecumseh Sherman, shown here displaying the sign of the Jabulon cult in this official U.S. Army photo. Hundreds of civilians were massacred during Sherman's fiery march through the South. Both President Franklin Pierce and President Rutherford B. Hayes, below, are acknowledged to have been Masons in the authoritative book 10,000 Famous Freemasons, an official publication of the Supreme Mother Council, Scottish Rite Freemasons. Rutherford B. Hayes, President of the United States, 1822 to 1893. This photograph of Lieutenant Elisha Hunt Rhodes is from a 1993 book entitled Freemasons at Gettysburg by Sheldon A. Munn. The caption above the photograph said that Lieutenant Rhodes was a member and worshipful master, the equivalent of the lodge president of Harmony Lodge No. 9, Cranston, Rhode Island. He was also the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Rhode Island in 1892 to 1893. John Jay, chosen by President George Washington and confirmed by the newly assembled U.S. Senate to be the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. Irish-American politician and author Ignatius Donnelly caused a sensation in 1882 with his book, Atlantis, The Antediluvian World. Donnelly claimed scientific evidence for the existence of the fabled lost continent of Atlantis, which sunk under the sea, predecessor of modern civilization. Donnelly's book even contained a chart showing the alleged evolution of alphabets from the time of Atlantis to the eras of the Mayas, Egyptians, and Hebrews, etc. The Illuminati elite of today believe they are, indeed, descended from the god-men and priests who, alone, escaped the tragic fall of the fabled Atlantis. Disney Studios did a movie, Atlantis, based on the theme, a movie saturated with esoteric codes and symbols. The legendary Thomas Cochrane, a British sea captain, gained fame fighting Napoleon's navy. The movie, Master and Commander. The Far Side of the World, starring Russell Crowe as hero, was based on his exploits. Here he is shown giving not only the Royal Archmason sign, but the left triangle as well. U.S. Civil War officer, Major Robert Anderson of the Confederate Army. Another U.S. Civil War officer, General George McClellan, Union General of the Army of the Potomac. Russian Mikhail Katkov, 1818 to 1880, occult publisher of Moscow Gazette. Katkov brought Hindu and Theosophy teachings to Russia. He also published some books of Russian mystic and Luciferian, Helena Blavatsky. How deeply was the Vatican and its Black Pope of the Jesuit order involved in the 1865 plot to assassinate President Abraham Lincoln? Burke McCarty, in an extraordinary 1924 book, The Suppressed Truth About the Assassination of Abraham Lincoln, alleges that the powerful and influential Giacomo Antonelli, Cardinal and Secretary of the Papal States under Pope Pius IX, supervised the plot from afar, and even hid a murderous associate of assassin John Wilkes Booth in the Vatican State, where he had fled, to protect him from execution by American authorities who sought his extradition. In the book, researcher McCarty includes this photo of Cardinal Antonelli without, however, explaining the obvious secret society hand sign of Antonelli. Don Wilkes Booth left, a well-known stage actor, with his brothers in a production of Caesar in 1864, just a year before he assassinated President Abraham Lincoln. Booth and his elder brother, Edwin, were both members of the Masonic Lodge, but because of John Wilkes's notoriety, the Freemasons quietly removed his name from their rolls. To this day, the Scottish Rites Membership Office maintains that only brother Edwin was a Mason. In the mid-19th century, French writer Victor Hugo, author of Les Miserables, cut a huge swath in occult circles. Here we see the mystical-minded Hugo giving a clear hand sign of Masonic Luciferian design, also pointing his finger to the temple. It was Victor Hugo who wrote the story, The Man Who Laughs, about a boy whose face had been horribly shaped into a permanent smile by fiendish cosmetic butchers. The grotesque tale was the basis for Batman's Joker character. It was alleged that Victor Hugo was not only a Rosicrucian, but was also Grand Master of the occultic order known as the Priory of Sion. Sculptor Auguste Bertholdi was a member of Paris, France's Grand Orient Lodge. It was Bertholdi, 1834 to 1904, who sculpted the Illuminati's monumental Statue of Liberty, which now graces New York's harbor. The statue is replete with secret society-coded messages and symbols of a particularly blasphemous nature. Yet, the vast majority of Americans adore the Statue of Liberty and naively see in her only virtue and goodness. Crown Prince Alexander of Yugoslavia, who resides in London, the city where his father, the late King Peter, fled during the Second World War, is shown on his first trip to Belgrade, Yugoslavia, in 1991. His Royal Highness, along with his family, dutifully posed for this photo. Based on his hand's position, the Crown Prince clearly wanted his secret society associates in the Masonic occultic world to know he was one of them, and that the elite's power has now been established in the former Soviet bloc nation. A Republican Party convention souvenir depicting President Ronald Reagan. The website offering it for sale describes it. From the 1984 convention, a smiling Ronnie in a Napoleonic stance. Reagan was given the honorary 33rd degree by Scottish Rite leaders in a private ceremony conducted in the Lame Duck President's Oval Office in Washington, D.C., just weeks before his second and final term ended. The author has a picture of this ceremony in his files. This issue of the intriguing publication, Paranoia magazine, included a feature article examining the tragic life of popular young actor River Phoenix, who died of a drug overdose on Halloween in 1993. The article's writer, Al Hidell, told of Phoenix's upbringing in the sordid sex cult known as the Children of God, also called the Family. The cult practiced incest, holy prostitution, and other wickedness. River Phoenix, who was celebrated for his roles in such movies as Stand By Me and Running on Empty, evidently could not escape his past. Why he is shown in the photo giving the sign of Masonry is not mentioned in the magazine, but some authorities say the Children of God leader David Berg had high-level political and Masonic Lodge connections. Picture of Friedrich Nietzsche at a young age. He German philosopher, cultural critic, compasser, poet, and philologist who wrote The Antichrist, plus fragments from A Shattering Mind in 1888. He blamed Christianity for demonizing strong higher humans. Christianity, as a religion of peace, is despised by Nietzsche. As we see, youngsters were also indoctrinated into Masonry with depraved morals. Famous Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart giving the sacred sign. For the last 7 years of his life, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart was a Mason. The Masonic order played an important role in his life and work. He was promoted to journeyman Mason on 7 January 1785 and became a Master Mason shortly thereafter. The Freemasons used music in their ceremonies. On the left, 44th U.S. President and Bible denier, Barack Obama, at the election night giving the sign of the Master of the Second Veil. Center, same Masonic gesture at the White House. Presidents are selected, not elected. On the right, North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, arrives at the railway station in the Russian Far Eastern city of Vladivostok, Russia, April 24, 2019, to meet Putin. The beloved Vatican Jesuit Pope Francis in this 2008 photo is showing his alliance to whom he serves. The secret brotherhood or the global elite are pulling the strings not only in Vatican City, but on a global scale, controlling the whole Catholic Church direction. Albert Einstein with a friend making the hidden hand. There is no doubt that Albert Einstein was a high-rank Freemason who was also deeply connected to the occult. The word God is for me nothing but the expression and product of human weakness. Albert Einstein's single most famous letter on God, his Jewish identity, and man's eternal search for meaning was written in January 1954, a year before he died. Origen, 185 to 254 AD, is often called an early church father. But, in fact, Origen brought many heresies, including Gnosticism, Illuminist ideology, into the church. Origen, a much-quoted scholar, hailed from Alexandria, Egypt, giving us yet another clue to his heretical philosophies. In this revealing pen and ink drawing, it appears that Origen's left hand is demonstrating the mysterious sign of an ancient secret society. 3 regal figures belonging to a Nubian temple. Each carries the Egyptian ankh, signifying rebirth and reincarnation in one hand. Other symbols are also seen. All the geniuses of the world, belonging to secret societies, trying to bring about their grand deception and the New World Order, those who worshipped false demonic gods, idols thinking that their master Satan will save and glorify them in afterlife, they're all in a place of misery now, forever paying for their wicked deeds, and the lake of fire has not come yet. Death does not care about your status, education, power, money, religion, and all the great ones on this earth went there. In my personal opinion, one of the worst things you can do, if you know the truth, is if you choose to lead someone astray from knowledge, keep it hidden and to secretly control them. This was only one analysis of many signs, more of it will be covered and explored in the upcoming videos.
When World War I erupted in 1914, President Woodrow Wilson pledged neutrality for the United States, a position that the vast majority of Americans favored. The U-boat was the Germans' most formidable naval weapon, a military submarine far more sophisticated than those built by other nations at the time. The typical U-boat was 214 feet long, carried 35 men and 12 torpedoes, and could travel underwater for about 2 hours at a time. Germany could easily hold its own, but something caused America to join the war, something most Americans were never told about.
With British Prime Minister Lloyd George up against a wall, Lionel Rothschild and the Jewish Zionists offered the British a deal they couldn't refuse. "We'll bring the United States into the war as your ally and win the war for you," they said, "if you'll promise us Palestine." In April of 1917, President Wilson got the green light and declared war on Germany. In return, the British government wrote the famous Balfour Declaration and addressed it to none other than Lord Lionel Rothschild. The declaration promised Palestine and Israel to the Rothschild Zionists.
Benjamin H. Friedman was a successful Jewish businessman who was at one time the principal owner of the Woodbury Soap Company. He spent the great preponderance of his considerable fortune, at least $2.5 million, exposing the tyranny which he believed had enveloped the United States.
World War I broke out in the summer of 1914. Now that war was waged on one side by Great Britain, France, and Russia, and on the other side by Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey. Within 2 years, Germany had won that war. Not alone won it nominally, but won it actually. The German submarines, which were a surprise to the world, had swept all the convoys from the Atlantic Ocean, and Great Britain stood there without ammunition for her soldiers, stood there with 1 week's food supply facing her, and after that, starvation. At that time, the French army had mutinied. They lost 600,000 of the flower of the French youth in the defense of Verdun on the Somme. The Russian army was defecting. They were picking up their toys and going home. They didn't want to play war anymore. They didn't like the Tsar. And the Italian army had collapsed. Now, Germany, not a shot had been fired on the German soil. Not an enemy soldier had crossed the border into Germany. And yet, here was Germany offering England peace terms. They offered England a negotiated peace on what the lawyers call a status quo ante basis. That means let's call the war off and let everything be as it was before the war started. Well, England in the summer of 1916 was considering that seriously. They had no choice. It was either accepting this negotiated peace that Germany was magnanimously offering them, or going on with the war and being totally defeated. While that was going on, the Zionists in London went to the British War Cabinet and they said, look here, you can yet win this war. You don't have to give up. You don't have to accept a negotiated peace offered to you now by Germany. You can win this war if the United States will come in as your ally. The United States was not in the war at that time. We were fresh, we were young, we were rich, we were powerful. And they told England, we will guarantee to bring the United States into the war as your ally, to fight with you on your side, if you will promise us Palestine after you win the war. In other words, they made this deal. We will get the United States into this war as your ally. The price you must pay us is Palestine after you have won the war and defeated Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Turkey.
The Balfour Declaration, a 1917 letter from then UK Foreign Secretary Lord Arthur Balfour pledging Britain's support for the establishment of a home for Jewish people in Palestine. Israel's National Archives are full of correspondences around that promise, including letters of protest from Palestinian leaders at the time. 100 years after the fact, the Palestinian Authority says they'll sue Britain's government in an international court.
Now, England had as much right to promise Palestine to anybody as the United States would have to promise Japan to Ireland for any reason whatsoever. It's absolutely absurd that Great Britain, that never had any connection or any interest or any right in what is known as Palestine, should offer it as coin of the realm to pay the Zionists for bringing the United States into the war. However, they made that promise in October of 1960.
Well, I'm here with thousands of others to say that Britain is the cause of all of this disaster. Britain, on behalf of one people, promised to a second people the land which belonged to a third people in the Balfour Declaration almost 100 years ago. Britain is therefore jointly and severally responsible for all of the suffering that has occurred since.
They went to England and they made this deal. At that time, everything changed, like the traffic light that changes from red to green, where the newspapers had been all pro-German, where they'd been telling the people the difficulties that Germany was having fighting Great Britain commercially and in other respects. All of a sudden, the Germans were no good. They were villains, they were Huns, they were shooting Red Cross nurses, they were cutting off babies' hands, and they were no good. Well, shortly after that, Mr. Wilson declared war on Germany. We were suckered into that war merely so that the Zionists of the world could obtain Palestine. Now, that is something that the people in the United States have never been told. They never knew why we went into World War I. Now, what happened? After we got into the war, the Zionists went to Great Britain and they said, well, we performed our part of the agreement. Let's have something in writing that shows that you are going to keep your bargain and give us Palestine after you win the war, because they didn't know whether the war would last another year or another 10 years. So they started to work out a receipt. The receipt took the form of a letter, and it was worded in very cryptic language so that the world at large wouldn't know what it was all about. And that was called the Balfour Declaration.
1817, Lord Allenby conquered the Holy Land, and the Jews were promised a national home in Palestine by the Earl of Balfour, a policy endorsed by Woodrow Wilson and by the League of Nations, which made Palestine a British mandate.
The Balfour Declaration was merely Great Britain's promise to pay the Zionists what they had agreed upon as a consideration for getting the United States into the war. The United States crushed Germany. We went in there, and it's history, you know what happened. Now, when the war was ended, and the Germans went to Paris, to the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, there were 117 Jews there as a delegation representing the Jews, headed by Bernard Baruch. I was there, I ought to know. The Jews at that peace conference, when they were cutting up Germany and parceling out Europe to all these nations that claimed a right to a certain part of European territory, the Jews said, how about Palestine for us? And they produced, for the first time, to the knowledge of Germans, this Balfour Declaration. So the Germans, for the first time, realized, oh, that was the game. That's why the United States came into the war. And the Germans, for the first time, realized that they were defeated. They suffered this terrific reparations that was slapped onto them because the Zionists wanted Palestine, and they were determined to get it at any cost.
The Balfour Declaration was signed on behalf of the British government and mentions Lord Rothschild by name, requesting that he bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation. The Rothschild prominence in this historic situation cannot be understated, especially since it is the Rothschild family that eventually designed and financed the Knesset, Israel's parliament, including the pyramid with the eye and all the other occult symbology. The Rothschild family descended from Mayer Amschel Rothschild, who was born in what is now Frankfurt, Germany, and went on to establish a huge international banking empire. Through his 5 sons, Mayer Amschel Rothschild expanded his banking fortune, with his 5 sons each stationed at one of the major European financial centers: Frankfurt, London, Naples, Vienna, and Paris. In the 19th century, the Rothschild family were at the height of their powers, and they utilized this power by effecting some very significant events in human history in order to profit greatly from it. That said, you will not find a single mention of the name Rothschild in the Forbes list of 500 wealthiest people on earth, but they are clearly the richest family on earth, as well as one of the most corrupt.
What? New World Order. Depopulation.
Oh, listen, who are you...
Genocide.
Who are you televising for?
We just want to let you know the New World Order has no legitimacy, and that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting this economy with the Federal Reserve.
Well...
What do you, I mean, the Rothschilds family did start the federal, they divided Europe first, took over Europe, the Napoleon.
Don't exaggerate.
2933 Sam 14 for suspicion, 1055 Ramsdale Drive. Cop reporting suspicious behavior next door. Went over to the home to the right of the RP, sees dead bodies inside the house, dog inside, sees a gun in the house on the floor.
Friends and neighbors bring flowers to the door of the Apple Valley home, where a family had laid dead for weeks. All police will say is that the couple, David and Kamel Crowley, and their 5-year-old daughter, died from gunshots in a murder-suicide. When police arrived Saturday afternoon, only the family dog was still alive. David was a military veteran and aspiring filmmaker, the director of this slick trailer for a movie project called Gray State. The plot line had America turning into a tyrannical police state. For 3 years, he'd been trying to sell the film concept to a Hollywood studio, and recently told friends he was on the verge of a $30 million deal.
And this is with no budget. We've already passed a lot of local films on Facebook in popularity, and we're in hibernation.
The Gray State Project had attracted the attention of libertarian conservatives. This was Crowley speaking at a Ron Paul event 3 years ago.
No Hollywood studio will touch the Gray State Project due to its contentious nature. That is why we need your help to get this film financed and seen in theaters.
The grisly nature of the Crowley's death led to headlines on People magazine and British tabloids. And on social media, plenty of conspiracy theories too. Even a Facebook page called Justice for David Crowley, with people saying they don't buy the official story, suggesting the Crowleys were murdered by special ops because the anti-government theme of his movie.
Last night I dreamt about how things were. And then I woke up here.
you're saying even in those states, the same kind of shutdown needs to occur?
Well, let's say you have 100 cases, and let's say you don't do a shutdown, then it grows 33% per day. So you take 100, you get 1,000, you get 10,000. It's exponential growth. Then it grows 33% per day. So you take 100, you get 1,000, you get 10,000. It's exponential growth. Then it grows 33% per day.
Then it grows 33% per day.
It's a new morning in America. Fresh, vital. The old cynicism is gone. We have faith in our leaders. We're optimistic as to what becomes of it all. It really boils down to our ability to accept. We don't need pessimism. There are no limits.
It figures it would be something like this.
Our nation, our ideals of vision.
Excuse me.
Just survive.
You know, you look like your head fell on the cheese dip back in 1957. You're okay. This one, real ugly. You see, I take these glasses off, she looks like a regular person, doesn't she, huh? Put them back on, formaldehyde face. That's what we got.
That's enough out of you. You get out or I call the cops.
Call the cops? You know what you need? You need a Brazilian plastic surgeon.
I've got one that can see.
Folks, while most of the people in the world are asleep to the agenda, many of us know that the COVID-19 coronavirus is being used to forward governance and to push us into a new world order, or as Henry Kissinger calls it, a liberal world order. I want to show you something from the 4th of April. This is Dr. Anthony Fauci, and he is giving what appears to be the lion's paw hidden hand sign that is often associated with adherents of the various branches of the ancient Babylonian mystery schools, including but not exclusive to Freemasonry. You be the judge. This seems very deliberate, and then he waves afterwards to someone else after having appeared to signal that he is a member of one of the branches of the ancient mystery schools. This hand sign is most often seen with the right hand being used, and some may say, well, Dr. Fauci's using his left hand, so it can't be. Well, George Washington was a Freemason, and here we can see in this picture that he was using his left hand as the hidden hand sign. And it is probably no coincidence that Dr. Anthony S. Fauci, the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and a point person on the federal government's response to coronavirus, graduated from the Holy Cross Jesuit College in Worcester in 1962. I'm not going to say any more about this at the moment, but I thought it was worth bringing it to people's attention, and you can do with it what you will.
There are stories circulating on the internet that in India and elsewhere, the drug ribavirin has been shown to be effective against this virus. Yet, Homeland Security is telling the CDC not to make any announcements until stockpiles of the drug can be secured.
Well, Dr. Gupta, there continue to be evaluations of several drugs. Ribavirin is among them. But right now, our best defense has been social distancing. No handshaking, staying home when you're sick, washing your hands frequently.
Can you tell us to date how many people have died from this virus?
Very difficult. We're still working on confirming that number. There are 50 different states in this country, which means there are 50 different health departments, followed by 50 different protocols.
Let me bring in Alan Krumwiede into this debate as well. Alan's a freelance journalist. He was the first to track the Shinko Busman video. Alan, today on Twitter, you wrote that the truth about this virus is being kept from the world by the CDC, by the World Health Organization, to allow friends of the current administration to benefit from it, both financially and physically.
There are therapies we know are effective right now, like Forsythia, and they don't even appear on the CDC website.
On your blog, you also wrote that the World Health Organization is somehow in bed with pharmaceutical companies?
Because they are. That's who stands to gain from this. They're working hand in glove. And the hand is reaching into our pockets.
The CDC is exploring Forsythia and other homeopathic treatments, but right now, there's no science to back any of these claims.
Or no way Dr. Cheever or the people who put him into power can profit from it.
We're not ruling anything out. There are people who are sick, people who are dying, and
they're not keeping us safe from this any more than they kept us safe
about the
Wall Street or Katrina. Dr. Cheever is being a bit disingenuous when he says every American citizen.
We're working very hard to find out where this virus came from, to treat it and to vaccinate against it if we can. We don't know all of that yet. We just don't know. What we do know is that in order to become sick, you have to first come in contact with a sick person or something that they touched. In order to get scared, all you have to do is come in contact with a rumor or the television or the internet. I think what Mr. Krumwiede is spreading is far more dangerous than the disease.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yes.
That's funny.
What's funny?
No, I think you're funny, because if you check on Facebook, you'll find a communique attributed to Dr. Cheever by Elizabeth Nygaard about the quarantine of Chicago, hours before it was announced to the public. That's why I think he's a bit disingenuous when he says equal care for all and not just his friends.
Some pretty wild allegations here, Dr. Cheever. I mean, can you tell us what communication appeared and when? What exactly is the nature of your relationship with Elizabeth Nygaard?
Well, again, I'm not aware of anything attributed to me on any social
I'm sure you're not. It is there. It is there. Tell them what an Arnold of 2 really means, Dr. Cheever. Teach them some math. No? I'll do it.
And joining us now is Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Needs no introduction past that.
Dr. Gupta, here to break down the facts on COVID-19.
Is there one red flag, something you're experiencing at home that says, okay, time to get to the hospital, get to the doctor, and get the real care?
One of the red flags, and again, I want to be a little humble here because, you know, we're learning about this all together, really real time. I mean, a lot of times when I've spoken to you in the past, I'm telling you things, it's based on 20 years of data, right? I can really feel confident.
Sure.
We haven't even had 3 months. This is a brand new thing. But having said that, one of the things I think is a bit of a red flag is, let's say you're not feeling well, then you start to feel better, and then all of a sudden the symptoms come back. That coming back part is of concern. Obviously, if you have sudden worsening of symptoms, difficulty breathing, spiking a high fever, things like that are more serious symptoms. But if you start to develop this sort of crescendo effect, that's worth talking to your doctor about. We know that the most vulnerable people are people who are elderly, typically in their 70s or 80s, although they define elderly as 60 and above. It's really people in their 70s and 80s who are most affected by this, and people who really have 4 underlying health conditions, which are heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, and lung disease. Those are the people we got to help protect.
Most importantly is most people who get this are going to recover. So there's a lot of emphasis on the corona test, but something tells me that, you know, if you're a healthy person, you don't need a test.
This virus, the coronavirus, the new one, tends to affect the lower part of your respiratory system more so than the upper part of your respiratory system. So what does that mean? It means that, you know, things like shortness of breath might be an earlier symptom. But on the other hand, if you have a runny nose, that makes it less likely to be coronavirus. Most people, if they do get exposed to this virus, are going to have a few bad days, a few days of being miserable, and they're going to recover.
On day 1, there were 2 people with it, and then there were 4, and then it was 16, and you think you've got it in front of you. But next it's 256, and then it's 65,000, and it's behind you and above you and all around you. In 30 steps, it's 1 billion sick. 3 months. It's a math problem you can do on a napkin, and that's where we're headed. And that's why you won't even tell us the number of the dead, will you, Dr. Cheever? But you'll tell your friends when to get out of Chicago before anyone else has a chance.
They're looking for a scapegoat.
He's a tall Caucasian male, doesn't appear armed, wearing sunglasses.
I don't like this one bit. Not one bit.
Vice President Dick Cheney, the man who's only a heartbeat away from the presidency, is actually a blood relation. He's President Bush's 9th cousin once removed. Cheney's cousin Barack Obama is also Bush's 11th cousin and the 9th cousin of Brad Pitt. But we're only just getting started. President Lincoln was President Bush's 7th cousin 5 times removed, and Bush shared more than just a ballot with John Kerry. That's right, they're 9th cousins twice removed. There's also royalty in the Bush bloodline. Princess Diana was Bush's 11th cousin twice removed. And then there's this bombshell. Sure, she may have been singing to JFK, but what about GWB? He is, after all, her 9th cousin 3 times removed. He's also related to Playboy founder Hugh Hefner, even Pocahontas, and Vlad the Impaler. Trace the family tree far enough, and you get Madonna.
We are all shapeshifters. We are all lonely drifters. If we've gotten out, we escape through the winter nights in a secret handshake. Disposable me, expendable you. Just take what you need, do what you do. You take me under. This heart has seen better days. You got my number. Girl, there's no change in my ways. Over and over, you're on your own. changing my ways over and over. You're on your own. Shapeshifter, shapeshifter. Here goes my alter ego. You know you're the one that I know. Shapeshifter, shapeshifter. Here goes my alter ego. Sometimes I feel driven away. better days.